According to the World Bank, women are the backbone of the rural economy, especially in developing countries. They make up almost half of the world's farmers, and over the last few decades, they've broadened their involvement in agriculture. In Africa, women make up 60 to 80% of agriculture's labour force and subsistence farming, and few farm beyond the subsistence level. The NPO African Women in Agriculture is trying to change that by nurturing a new generation of agripreneurs into the agricultural ecosystem. And to tell us more, I spoke a little bit earlier to their chairperson, Janice Scheckter. Janice, thanks very much indeed for joining us on the programme. Welcome to you. We know that agriculture, women are involved a great deal across the continent. I think the World Bank put it at between 60 and 80%, but it's mostly as labour and at a subsistence level. Is that perhaps one of the reasons why you felt an intervention was required?
Absolutely. Hi, Peter, and thanks so much for having us on and for just giving a little bit more exposure to this critical topic, because it's really, yes, it's about women, but it's about food security and alleviation of poverty, etc. And that's absolutely true. Across Africa, women certainly make up a greater part of the agri-labor force than men do, but they are severely marginalized in terms of access to finance, to land, to farm inputs, etc. So women's ability to go into agribusiness and to uplift themselves is challenging.
As African Women in Agriculture, what is it that you're hoping to do? You're launching an incubator this week. Tell us about what this project is trying to do.
Well, we've been at it for since the end of 2017, and we've had a number of small projects, but this is really our first substantial project. It's called the Lwazi Agripreneurs Incubator, and it's based about 15 minutes south of Southgate in the south of Johannesburg. And our focus is really to capacitate women in agri. It's our vision to capacitate women in agribusiness. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that they're able to access the knowledge, the funding, the land. And that's exactly what we're doing. So 12 young women have been really handpicked from an original application of around 280 women. And these 12 young women have all demonstrated some leaning to, firstly, a passion for agriculture, but secondly, a desire to be in agribusiness, and where they may start with something really simple like spinach or cabbage farming and providing their local communities. We want to push them. We want to push them over a 12-month period, that they start innovating, possibly going into agro-processing, possibly thinking about the role they play in greater food security, urban food security, peri-urban, etc. So these women over a year develop a business plan, but in addition to that, we really contribute to their holistic growth, to their personal development, their financial skills, and that's not just about creating a budget for a farm, but about becoming agripreneurs that make significant contribution.
You know, perhaps I should have started with this question, because we're making assumptions that everybody understands what agribusiness is and what an agripreneur is. Just give us a little bit of a definition so that we get an idea of where you're going.
Great point. So agripreneurship can be any kind of business across the agri value chain. It may, for example, be biodegradable packaging for seeds, that you simply plant the entire package in the ground and something grows. It may be the development of innovative tools or irrigation systems, or what we call precision farming, which is smart AI type farming, or the measuring of water in fields, etc. And in the same vein, it may be the growing of spinach or microgreens for off-takers such as our supermarkets or the fresh produce market. So agribusiness is really any entrepreneurial venture anywhere along the agri value chain.
All right, so that's going beyond subsistence, which is where a lot of our women on the continent find themselves in. Why the incubator system? Why this model?
It's such an interesting one because the five of us who are the AWiA management team and who take responsibility and run this organization are all entrepreneurs. And we all have an interesting view of the approach to incubation in South Africa, although I have to tell you our narrative is certainly beyond South Africa's borders, and our group of women include 4 African nationalities, our group of 5 women. So, but having said that, an incubator, there are so many incubators in South Africa, and many young people jump from incubator to incubator in the hope that something magical will happen. And it actually sometimes has a little bit of a negative connotation to it, because it doesn't always result in the desired outcome of entrepreneurship or job acquisition, etc. Why we wanted an incubator was we wanted an incubator that we could prove would do the job. And the incubator itself has varying components. It has the component of organic farming, so 2 to 3 hectare of organic farming. Our young women get their hands dirty. They have tools. Tomorrow they receive their branded PPE and farming equipment the day before the official launch, and they get in there and they plant stuff, and they need to see it growing. They also need to be a part of our produce out of our farm, because as a nonprofit, we need to be sustainable. The last thing we want to be is a continuously grant or donor funded entity. So within the incubator, the young women farm organics. They will also farm hydroponics, and our first hydroponic tunnel, which will be solar powered, will incorporate 12,000 plants. So we need the woman to go through a couple of harvests, see what an offtake looks like, see what possibilities there are for agro-processing. Possibly we, for example, grow spinach and we dry out that spinach to become food coloring, because spinach is the biggest contributor to green food coloring, especially in breads, etc. And of course, when you do that, you substantially increase the value of the original crop. So we want them to see these processes and to see what's possible. In addition to that, they have a lot of in-classroom activity. They need to create projects alongside each other, and they need to develop this business plan that they will be presenting to potential funders at the end of the 12-month period. So the incubation process becomes a very important process with a lot happening along the timeline.
The thing with a lot of small businesses and starting out entrepreneurs, and I'm putting agripreneurs in here, especially these young ones, in the end, actually, it's a business and money is the whole story. Do you teach them about money? Because a lot of the times I find a lot of businesses fail just because they couldn't deal with the finance side of it, even though they were brilliant at everything else.
Absolutely. Finance is a huge component of the teaching, and it's not just to manage business finance and to know that they have to be able to read a balance sheet. They have to understand profit and loss, because what many subsistence farmers do is they kind of work from day to day, hand to mouth. Some comes in, some funds are possibly spent on feeding the family, some may be spent on a bit of offtake or seeds, and there's no real understanding as to whether these activities are in essence profitable and sustainable. So the entrepreneurial aspect of finance we do very deep dives into, but also personal finance to ensure that what they're allocating for their personal survival, well-being, growth is in sync with what they're making as a businesswoman.
All right, so this project is running just south of Johannesburg, but is it something that you hope will be able to replicate across the continent? Because, this is a continent-wide issue.
Absolutely. We're calling ourselves African Women in Agri, and in fact, I mentioned within our management team, we have someone from Namibia, Tanzania, and Kenya. So 3 members from different countries, and the balance of us are local girls. On our advisory board, one of our advisors is based in Kenya, and she sits on the African Union Interbureau for Animal Resources. We have a Zimbabwean representative. So we've really ensured that we've got good African representation and that we can start somehow replicating. And what we're doing is we're working hard on creating a template in this first outing and making sure that it works. It's great that we imagined it for a number of years on paper. Does it work in practice? And once we know it works, the process becomes able to scale into other countries, into other provinces, etc.
So governments at one point all agreed to spend X amount towards agriculture in their countries. Do you think that authorities need to take women in agriculture more of a priority than they are at the moment? And what kind of assistance could they provide to get this kind of thing off the ground?
It's a great question, and I'm not sure that it has a simple answer, because in some countries there are social issues that affect gender neutrality and gender opportunity, but without getting it, and we always need to understand that those complexities exist. But without diving into those, women should definitely be at least as big a priority as men. So let's stop marginalizing them. Let's start ensuring that they have the same opportunity, that women are taken seriously when they apply for land or when they create cooperatives, that there's not any kind of biases towards them, and that in itself would be a great starting point.
So agriculture, particularly with women, a lot of the times it's out of necessity, literally to feed their families. And we're hoping to raise this, I guess, to another level of people thinking about it as a business and become commercial down the line. The question now then becomes, are young people interested in agriculture so that they can look at it as a career that they can look forward to?
I don't believe enough is done by either the agriculture sector or by government themselves to publicize the appeal of this. When people think of farming, maybe in their minds they have kind of some cattle herding scenario instead of wonderful projects that are currently being funded. The IDC, which is our funding partner, has funded an incredible project in rose geranium oil. So it's an essential oil that's mixed with a carrier oil. It's a wonderful business. So I don't think that there is enough spoken about for young people to have excitement about this career. You know, so much TV is consumed, and lawyering and law enforcement, and everything looks so highly appealing. When do you ever see farming looking appealing? So I think there's not enough narrative around it as to how innovative and appealing it could be, not to mention how critical it is to our survival.